This is who I'm having on right now. 1 second, I'll
When
be
we
back
think
in a
about community, right? This is what community is about. That for us, for workers, for people of color, for the unhoused, for immigrants, LGBT folks, and all the people our society neglects. Being part of a community is power. Alone, we're vulnerable, but together, we're strong. It's pretty simple. All we have to do is show up. Community is showing up. Power is standing side by side in the struggle. Community is power.
Okay, folks, I am going to be hosting Hugo Soto-Martinez, who's running for LA City Council District 13 to build community power for workers, immigrants, the unhoused, and people of color, young people, and all of us who have been neglected by our city officials. His website is hugo2022.com. I am going to give him a call right now, and we're going to get started. All right?
Hello there.
Hey, what's going on, man? Can you turn on your camera? Okay, you can start talking now, but here, you are, all right, perfect. You are now on camera. What's going on, man?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. We just watched your campaign video that you put out. You're running for LA City Council District 13, and you know, there's a bunch of questions I want to ask you. Shouts out to Josh and Drosky for setting this up.
Yeah,
I'm very excited to have you on today. What's up?
I'll make sure to thank him, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So you have a background in organizing. You have a background in labor organizing, right? If I'm not mistaken, hotel unions.
That's right. I was a non-union hotel worker for 7 years. Helped win the union in my workplace. I've been now for 15 years.
All
in
right.
union.
So yeah, give us a little bit more background information on you know what led you to want to run for city council.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So joining the union to me was incredibly transformative. I had just got out of college. I was like 6 weeks away from graduation. I'm working full time. I'm working at this non-union hotel, and getting ready to take my LSAT, go to law school. And they started organizing the union. I had been there for 7 years, since I was 16 years old. And so I knew that I couldn't just walk away from this fight that was happening. I knew it was going to be transformative for the workers. And so my coworkers and I, we got together. We went to management. We said, we want to form a union. And it was incredibly transformative because up until that time, managers had never treated us with respect. Never fixed any of the issues. We were basically ignored. And after doing that, I felt, that they respected us, that they listened to us. And a few months later, we had won a union. We had won wage increases, free family health insurance, a pension for the workers. And so, I've been doing that for 15 years now. But when you look around the city I grew up in, you see that even though we're fighting really hard for our members, just the world is changing around them. The rents are increasing, and even our members who make $23, $25 an hour are living day by, week by week, check by check. The increase of homelessness is exploding in the city. The issues of our environment and how we treat our planet are just, it's terrible to see what's happening. And the generations of our members, are just getting worse. We're not improving in the city. And so I think as an organizer, one of the things you always recognize is, well, how can you do more? How can the movement do more for people? And so I think there is an opportunity here to transform not only the city and the district with a grassroots campaign that it's going to be, a lot of DSA members, labor unions, and grassroots activists are going to come together and do it. So I think that after many years of organizing, I see a turn in the city where grassroots candidates can take out someone who's been very much ingrained in the power structure of the city. So I just see it as a continuation of the work that I've been doing in the union. It's just on a much larger scale. And so that's kind of what inspired me to run.
Okay, that's awesome. I do want to talk to you about like unionizing your workplace, because there's a lot of chatters in here that already work in like non-union jobs that are interested in that sort of thing. Like, what are the best methods to start? And how can they get more information? You know, this is certainly very valuable on that front. If you want to elaborate a little bit on that.
Oh wow. Okay, you're speaking my language, speaking my love language here. I could
Great.
talk for I could talk for hours about this, but I'll try to keep it brief. Number one, secrecy is important. The minute the managers sniff anything regarding the union, they're going to want to stomp it out. They're going to want to stop. They see that as a rebellion of the working class, which it is. And so secrecy is absolutely important. Number one, you have to, and so that's number one. Number two is just very quickly map out people's sort of political leanings, right? If they're more lefty, more socialist, they like unions, have them make a list of the people that are pro, like you would say are leaning towards the union. You don't have to talk about the union when you do this. Talk about Bernie Sanders. Talk about the issues of homelessness. Try to get an understanding of where they lean. Make a list of those people, and then I think start having those underground meetings with those just select few people. And I think get the backing of an organization. United Here Local 11 does a lot of amazing work. We do restaurants, hotels, stadiums, and airports. So you got to have the backing of a union. Again, obviously there's other unions, other industries, but having that list of the pro-union people, doing it in secrecy, and then approaching a more established organization, that is, if workers came to me with a list of everyone that was pro-union and saying they're ready to organize, and it's been in a secret and the manager hasn't known, we're already way ahead in winning the union at that workplace. So there's a couple of things you can do. Again, I can talk about for hours for that, but I think that is a very simple thing people can do, which is not very difficult, I think, in my opinion.
So why should people care about a LA City Council position, though? Like, you're running for LA City Council CD 13, right? Why should I have an international audience? Why should they care? Well, not an international audience, but like, why I have a national audience that's pretty large. And that sounds contentious, but I'm not asking. I want you to give us an answer.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, LA City Council is the individual council members are more powerful than the mayor. We have a weak mayor, which is called a weak mayor, so they don't really have a lot of say. And so, for folks that live in LA City or at least LA proper, the council member makes all these decisions regarding housing, the criminalization, whether they support good union jobs, basically transportation issues within the city. They handle all of that. And I think for folks that are listening outside, that are not in Los Angeles or California, we have to think about the role that Los Angeles plays in policy, right? If you've heard of the SWAT team, that started in Los Angeles, right? Operation Hammer during the Olympics, that's what it started here. Prop 22, which essentially stripped away the rights of who is a worker with the gig economy, happened here in California. And so policy that happens in Los Angeles gets transported to the rest of the country. And this is the same thing, by the way, same thing has happened regarding immigration stuff. I know one of my friends who was from Omaha, and she came to Los Angeles to organize immigrant workers because she says whenever something would happen in Los Angeles or California, it would show up in Omaha. And so this is absolute fact. And so what we do in the second largest city in the country, not only do we transport policy and ideas, but also can be an inspiration for other folks and really lead the progressive wave. And I think that's why people should care. I think that's absolutely a reason why people should care about LA city politics.
All right, perfect. So there's a lot of issues that obviously we have here in Los Angeles, even though it is considered a Commie-fornia, commie paradise, right? How do you choose to address some of these issues, specifically starting with homelessness?
Well, I mean, I wish it was Commie-fornia, but unfortunately, it is not. We have the largest prison population in the country, the largest undocumented population in the country, and a bunch of other things that we should not be proud of. But particularly regarding the issue of homelessness, right? It's a complicated issue, but it basically comes down to how does the city view a person that is unhoused? right? Do we see them as a failure of society, or do we, and look at really the systemic racism and the systemic inequalities that have created this, or do we criminalize them? Unfortunately, a lot of people have taken the route of criminalizing because, you know, it's easy. It's easy to say the way we get rid of them is just by banish them, get it out of sight, out of mind. You know, I want to live in La La Land. I want this to be like Disneyland, right? But that is not, because, and why is that easier? It's easier because if you start looking at why homelessness exists, you're going to look at the racist redlining policies that existed in this country. You're going to look at racist covenants that have caused, Black families and people of color to not have access to generational wealth. You're going to see an inflated police budget that continues to be, that grows every single time, mostly to deal with nonviolent crimes and homelessness issues. So to look at homelessness issue through, through the lens that I look at is to really address the root causes of, to look at the roots of capitalism, in my opinion, because that's the thing that's causing homelessness. That's the thing that's making people be thrown out of their homes. And so not only are we going to lead with that analysis, but I think we're going to change the way we look at the issues of our society. We have to look at the systemic reasons, of homelessness. And there's a big progressive wave happening here, and so I think winning this seat is going to create shockwaves, because we're running against an incumbent who has continued to criminalize the homeless, who continues to allow the gentrification in his area, and he's been in city politics for over 20 years. 10 years as an elected, and then the other 8 as a staffer. So we are going to beat someone who is deeply entrenched in the system of City Hall. And I think that's going to send an incredible message to the rest of the city, of like what the city, where the city has arrived, especially with the activism.
You want to talk about some of the stuff that the incumbent that you're running against has done so far with respect to criminalizing homeless people, like some of the worst things that they've done?
I mean, so the worst things they've done, and this made national news, is Echo Park Lake.
Yeah.
Right. Echo Park Lake is it's, by the way, the Echo Park Lake that I remember is not the Echo Park Lake that it is now. It used to be a mostly brown community, huge investment from the city, try to beautify it. Of course, it's caused massive gentrification. And so recently, through the COVID pandemic, there was an increase of unhoused living at the park. And unfortunately, this council member decided to take a very aggressive approach in the middle of the pandemic. Under the threat of being arrested, pushed many people into temporary housing, not permanent, just temporary. And then at the end, there was about, estimates are between 10 and 15 unhoused, and a lot of advocates supporting them in their decision to stay at the park. And he brought over 400 police officers, cost the city over $1 million in overtime that paid to the police. And in the process, over our estimates, again, over 20 journalists were arrested in the process, and somebody had their arm broken. This is not the way we treat the unhoused, and B, the people who are expressing their First Amendment rights. And the one thing, and so that's absolutely despicable in my opinion. But one of the untold stories that happened at Echo Park Lake is when it did reopen, eventually it reopened, right? Not only were the unhoused not there, but also the street vendors were gone, right? And someone who grew up with street vendor parents, that had nothing to do with unhoused. This is about the banishment of working class people of color of the city. And so it had many layers to it. Again, people hear more about how the unhoused were treated, but the street vendors get ignored, but they were also affected by this. And I think it's just the process of cleansing that area of people that look like me, unfortunately.
Yeah. And that happened because the demographic in that region has changed, obviously, right? Dramatically through a series of gentrification that has also caused the homelessness crisis in that area as well. Because when there's more gentrification happening, then there are, there are some people that were fortunate enough to be able to be homeowners in that area selling their houses. But in most circumstances, Black and brown populations are still destined to a lifetime of renting. So all you're doing is evacuating renters and driving up property value while simultaneously pricing people out of the housing market, which is why people become homeless to begin with. living out of their cars, or even in the most dire circumstances, living inside of a tent. And obviously that's no solution. I see that you're interested in a housing first strategy with respect to ending the homelessness crisis by creating opportunities and creating permanent shelter, not just homeless shelters, right? Not just like pushing these people into homeless shelters, but instead, but instead creating permanent shelter opportunities. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So, the way we're going to eliminate homelessness is going to take years. Like we just have to admit that. But there's things we can do right now to alleviate the issues of homelessness right now. And so that's number one is commandeering the hotels, right? I work at the Hotel Workers Union. Let me tell you, when the pandemic hit, and even now, because I visit these hotels every single day, they are not at 100% occupancy. They're at 30%, they're at 40%. And some of them were completely closed during the pandemic. In fact, some are still closed right now. Why can't the city take over those hotels for the public good? We could do that right now. But there is no political will, because you're going to tell us property owner that's now part of the city's process, right, of housing the homeless. We could do that right now. I estimate that if we were to do it right now, every single unhoused person could have a place to sleep tonight if we did that. But there's no political will, right? But I think the longer term process is about how we view housing, right? Housing is not a commodity. It should not be viewed that way. It is a human right, and every single person should have a roof over their head. It should be a guarantee. And so I think we also have to look at how the housing policies have created the homelessness crisis, right? Those racial covenants, the lack of affordable housing, the building the luxury market rate in our backyard, right? We have to decommodify it. We have to pass laws like TOPA, which is going to give renters an ability to buy the buildings. So for example, if I rent, and so if the owner of this building were to sell it, if we had TOPA, which is a tenant opportunity to purchase agreement, we, the tenants of this area, of this the 60 units here, would be legally given the first opportunity to buy the apartment. We need policies like that, because then we have a collective, we have a cooperative, there's no owner, we are like literally paying rent for ourselves, right? And so we have to think about how we start decommodifying. I think that's one way that is starting to gain traction in this country.
It's a wonderful idea. It's similar to the first right of refusal before an IPO that I think Corbyn advanced in the UK originally for like democratic ownership over the means of production in workplaces or in businesses that were either going to go public or in businesses that were actually defaulting or going bankrupt. Obviously, there needs to be a funding mechanism for that. I don't know if you've like covered that side as well, some public banking in that situation, because like there needs to be some kind of trust to be able to finance decisions like that beyond like individuals. It's still a good start, but I do believe that there's a little bit more necessary behind that to be able to fund endeavors such as that when people do want to buy their apartment complexes or houses.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny you mentioned the public bank, because that is literally being debated in California and in Los Angeles right now. There's a state bill, and then it's being pushed through the city committee structure, LA City, and that has a lot of support. There's only one public bank, and I think it's in North Dakota or South Dakota. I always get the Dakotas confused. But yeah, that's another thing that's debating. And LA City at any given time, and there's a controller admitted this a few months ago, we have $10 billion at any given time sitting in our city coffers. Well, if we had a public bank, we would be able to borrow 10 times the amount, just because the way banking laws work, 10 times the amount. That means we as a city would have access to $100 billion of capital, right? And so when we're talking about the decommodification of housing and other programs that we could do, is like having that bank would accelerate the ability for us to fund these programs. And so that is another thing that I'm very excited about supporting. I support it. I got my, just a little FYI, I got my union to support this, and so that's part of some of the work that I'm trying to do is like the labor movement be very progressive and very active in giving people worker power through policy. So, hopefully that passes too. We got to make sure that passes and really unleash the ability for us to do things in the city.
Let's talk about what's going on with the recall. What are your thoughts on the recall? You said you're a part of like labor organizing. I'm assuming are you a DSA member?
I am very proudly a DSA member. That's
Okay.
right. I've showed you my card in my pocket.
So all of my friends that are also members of the DSA are actively calling up people for the Democratic Party right now, unfortunately, because they are against the recall for understandable reasons. What are your opinions on it? I wanted to hear. I mean, there's PSL is organizing. Like Gloria Della Riva is organizing against the recall to tell you where the situation is here in California. It's insane.
Yeah, I'm against the recall, obviously. But the recall I think is really endemic of what's happening not only in the state but also in the city of Los Angeles, right? And so in the city of Los Angeles, we have someone running for mayor who's a police officer who's talking about criminalizing the homelessness, and that's becoming very palpable in the city. And so what's happening at the state level is endemic of that dynamic. It's like we are experiencing a right-wing backlash against all the progress we made last year regarding the uprisings. And so, yes, I will support holding the governor in his office. As I've done many times. It's not about we have to make these smart decisions. It's like with the presidential race. I wanted Bernie. I was diehard Bernie. When he didn't get the nomination, yeah, I was upset. I was angry. And then I got my ass to, sorry, I'm not sure if curse, but I got myself over to Arizona.
Curse all you want,
everything
man.
I could to make.
This is not a serious news broadcast. I mean, don't worry. Trust me. He can curse as much as you want.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I got over there. I did what I could because I knew that at the end of the day, who's going to be hurt the most is working class people. And so we got to fight back the recall and make sure we keep pushing our progressive policies across the state.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that for a second too, because like there's a lot of chatter coming out of extremely online leftists and whatnot. I hate to like bring this up because you're doing like serious work on the ground, but this is an online news show. But there are some in my community as well that are regularly saying like, "Oh man, you guys are you're the mouthpiece for the Democratic Party." Is there a particular reason why? Like, is there anything you want to tell these people that you're like the reasons for why you, as an organizer, who's like literally putting your money where your mouth is and like going out and running for a position in local government, why you are also on board against the recall? Because the alternatives are horrifying. I mean, Larry Elder.
Yeah, I always go back to like these organizing maxims that I've learned, right? First one is, do you want to be right or do you want to organize? Right? This is not about an argument. It's about organizing. And the second one is, look, this is a question of power, right? If you have the power, you're going to get what you want. If you don't have the power, then you have to go back and build more power. And so we have the power to stop the recall. We don't want to, it's not acting out of ego, right? And at the end of the day, it's not, the people that are going to suffer the most are people who don't have a voice. This is the undocumented people of this country, right? Of this city, which we have 1 million. We have 1 million in LA County. It's going to be the street vendors who are going to get hurt. It's going to be the unhoused that get hurt. It's going to be people who don't have the ability to tap into a larger structure of power. Those are the people that are going to be hurt the most. And so, we can think about what's right, what's wrong, things like that. But at the end of the day, I can move past that stuff because I work with people every single day who are going to get hurt, who are going to get pulverized by the system. The thing about Arizona I kept thinking about is I've done a lot of immigration work in the union. And all I could think about when I was in Arizona is what's going to happen to my friends who are under the threat of deportation under Trump. Because they don't have a status, right? And every day they lived in fear. And you know what? They got their asses out there and they were door knocking in 100-degree heat So it's easy to say, make these arguments of why not support it. But if you're rooted in the work and you're rooted in the consequences that these decisions have, it doesn't take you very long to move yourself into action. So that's what I would say to people.
All right, cool. Do you want to talk about some other stuff that you are running on with in comparison to like the incumbent currently? Like what will you do differently? I mean, I feel like the position that you're going for seems unimportant to the untrained who's like, oh, like I don't get it, like it's just like a small local position, but it is incredibly important, especially because of how much power a city council member has in Los Angeles. You're like a mini mayor. I mean, you would have a lot of autonomy over a gigantic area that is a mixed demographic, that has poor people, relatively well-off people, and you have responsibility over them. You have control over the budgets, right? To a certain degree, you can focus on like housing homeless people in that region, in that area, in the way that you want to. And then also on top of that, having more progressives and having leftists in these positions, in the city councils, in numerous other Los Angeles districts, also creates a lot of power and a lot of momentum and a lot of organizing ability for the left. And who knows what the ceiling is there with respect to like Los Angeles government, or with respect to California government even. It's the opportunities are endless. So I do understand why it's important to. I was gonna ask you to say all this, but I said it instead. Sorry. Anyway,
I can phrase it in a slightly different way, although very, very similar. One of the things I've been organizing for 15 years now in the union, and I saw, like, I remember the May Day marches, when it was like 200 people, right? And I've been keeping track of the city. I'm like looking at it. Okay, what is happening right now in Los Angeles, and not just Los Angeles, in many parts of the country, is the only comparison that we have is to the civil rights movement, where there was lots of protests. Like in 1964 was a year there was more protests than any other time in the country. That was beat recently, I think in 2018, 2019. And in Los Angeles in particular, because I'm from here, is we saw a grassroots candidate beat an incumbent, which hadn't happened in 20 years. So to me, what that said was the power that and then go back to my power phrase, right? It's like we have built enough power where we can take one seat. We could take one seat. Now, the thing that's very inspiring to me is that I come from the labor movement, right? I come from a very, very powerful union, very much done the work with different unions and things like that. And for a very long time, the labor movement still has a lot of power. But combining those two bases, the grassroots energy, the socialists, the enviros, with labor, I think could be incredibly transformative in this city. When we talk about the Green New Deal, this is what we're talking about, right? The transformative power of bringing labor and workers together. Incredible. When we look at the housing and homelessness crisis, creating jobs where we take the unhoused to go out and organize, other unhoused. Being able to merge these two worlds, I think it can have like incredible effects in the kind of power that we can build for working class people. So, I'd say of all the candidates running, all the progressive candidates, I'm the only one that has like this very, very extensive labor background. But I also, obviously, I'm an organizer with DSA as well. But I think seeing these two worlds combine, I mean, I'm very inspired by the possibilities of what it could turn into.
All right, perfect. Do you want to talk about anything else before I let you go?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing, like you mentioned, we are a grassroots organization. And so, if everyone on this call donated $5, it'd be incredible boost to our campaign. And so you can go to bit.ly/Hugo donate.
Yeah, we've been spamming the link too. in the chat.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I mean, look, it's like like Bernie Sanders won because many people made small individual donations. That is our campaign. We're not taking any corporate, any fossil fuel, any developer, any cop money for sure. Not taking any of that. We're going to be fueled by the people for the people, and we're going to take that power and we're going to put it in the hands of the people who deserve it the most. And so that's what our campaign is about.
What about donations from homeowners, like a person who owns a house, for example? Like, is that unethical? I don't know. I'm just asking for a friend, you know?
Yeah, tell your friend that is just fine. What encompasses your friend, it is not a house that they own, but rather the totality of the person, and we would gladly take that donation.
Okay, I'm letting you know you're going to get donations from a bunch of people that live in houses. Okay, so that could be a problem. You could get attacked for that, as I'm a big I'm a big sellout apparently for purchasing a home. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your work. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll have you back on, obviously, as the election
would love to be
is
here
closer.
again.
I just wanted to spread the word a little bit, and I hope that was productive for you as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I enjoyed being on.
All right, bye.
All right, have a good one.
Okay, folks, that was Hugo Soto-Martinez running for CD13. I will show you on a map what that is. He's been an organizer with Unite Here Local 11 in Los Angeles for the past 15 years. And, he's great. You think he has a chance to win? Absolutely. Yeah. The thing is, one of the greatest... Bro, why are you acting like you don't care about what he's saying? You look so annoyed. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. Take a week off, idiot. If I didn't care about what he was saying, why would I have him on? So, the thing is that I want people to understand is that, like, one of the advantages that I have is that it's like I'm kind of low key. It's good to be able to have people that are running for local office like this while to a larger audience and fundraise and do stuff like that. It's great, especially because like most people don't like, these are positions that are in many ways up for grabs. Like, there's a profound amount of power with positions like this, okay? But it's also something that is like overlooked in many instances. And it's a fucking huge district. You know what I mean? It's a fucking gigantic district here. Let me just show you. On a map so you understand. This is the district that Mitch O'Farrell currently fucking, sits on. That's massive, dude. That's fucking massive. You're a micro influencer, niche celebrity. No Dem socks running in Alabama. Fuck my life. Well, you can do it too, man. Alabama tanky. Remember, you can do it as well. I urge you to also, go out and do the same thing, especially if you have a lower profile.
All these daily streams, whether big or whether small. So there he is again. The sun is streaming. The sun is streaming. You wait.